Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 104. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Friday show. Less than 1 week until the 2021 NFL Draft. We can put all of our speculation to bed. Dave Bryan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Mock draft season's almost over.
Your favorite.
How is your final mock draft coming? You burning through the paper?
Heavy edits. But I think I know what direction I'm going to go, and I believe my final Steelers mock draft will get posted Monday morning. So be on the lookout for that Monday morning.
Yeah, I spent some late night hours myself scratching through some names and putting them back on there, and then scratching back through them again. I don't know. I might surprise some people with my offering this year. I mean, certainly it seems like it's going to be one of about, we already ran and talked about that narrowed down list quite a bit. But anyway, we'll get to that later in the show. But less than 1 week to go. So we'll be busy, obviously, these next couple of weekends for sure.
And busy this morning with the news of cornerback Justin Layne, according to, I believe it was KDKA, has been arrested in Ohio on multiple charges, including speeding, driving on a suspended license, and a firearm violation, a fourth-degree felony for improper handling of it. Still getting details. The Steelers have not officially commented, I don't believe, on that so far. But Justin Layne, the main character of today's show, and that's never a good thing for the reason why he's the main character of today's show. Yep.
Well, you never know what you're going to wake up to some mornings, right? And obviously, unfortunate for not only Layne but the Steelers as well. Now, the details that we know so far, I know there's a lot of pushback I see right now, or at least I'm getting some comments to me saying, "Oh, go ahead and cut him" and all like that. Based on what I see right now out there, I would be surprised if they cut him. Now I know there's a report out there that they found marijuana, I guess, in the vehicle. I don't believe he was charged with anything, possession related or anything like that. Heck, I don't even know what the laws are in
right. I think it's still illegal in Ohio, I'm guessing.
Okay, but so far, obviously this can change as soon as we, get halfway through this show, but I'm not seeing that. Now the firearm, I take it as just a violation there. I think, as you said, I think a fourth-degree felony on that. That's obviously a concern. I think pulled over for speeding, and then driving on the suspended license, and then something outstanding for maybe another traffic violation there. So not a great way to start off a Friday morning as a Steelers cornerback on a depth chart on a team that has some issues on their cornerback depth chart.
Yeah, absolutely. This is such a critical kind of make it or break it season for Justin Layne. And, again, I don't think this is serious enough for him to be cut, today or tomorrow, but it's not a good way to start this critical offseason for Justin Layne. The lease of Steven Nelson. There would be a better opportunity for Layne to play, battling James Pierre for potentially an outside cornerback spot. And this is just not a good look overall, obviously.
Right. And I would imagine you're going to get a pretty nice talking to from Mike Tomlin. And, look, young kid making a bad decision, right? Or several bad decisions, I would guess. And hopefully this isn't serious enough that will force him out of a job. And hopefully, whatever the result of all this, it becomes a huge and probably expensive lesson on top of it there. And, we can get into being on the streets after midnight and yada yada. I mean, look, when you live in a glass house like I do, and you too, Lord, your history, I'm sure, is littered with run-ins with the law.
Yeah, I was doing 40 and a 35 the other day.
Oh, watch it. But obviously not making fun of it or just trying to make a little bit of light of it here in the fact that this is serious enough that's going to get him a talking to from Mike Tomlin. I don't think that it will result in him being cut, but this is a former third-round draft pick. Hasn't necessarily shined, hasn't really even played all that much so far, and I don't think it does anything overall to your draft plans. I don't think you're shuffling your board around because of this. And I mean, let's face it. I think both of us are probably going to have a cornerback mock to the Steelers in our final mock drafts as well. And I think we would both be surprised if the Steelers don't come out of the 2021 draft with a cornerback here. So I don't think it really changes all that. But I don't know, ship up or shape out. That's basically what it's going to come to, I think, to Justin Layne here. And once again, hopefully this just becomes just only an expensive learning lesson for him, and maybe it puts him, maybe it gets his attention.
I should correct myself. According to Ray Fittipaldo, the team has made a short comment. This is a quote from a tweet from Fittipaldo saying, quote, "A Steelers spokesman said the team is aware of the incident and is gathering information. They will have no further comment at this time." So they have at least acknowledged the situation, but obviously not offering anything more. Standard team speak. Not to make the one-to-one comparison, but there's a lot of Artie Burns going on here with Justin Layne. Kind of taller, a little bit longer corners coming out of college, pretty raw guys. And Burns himself was arrested for driving with his suspended license, I think, after his rookie season. So another year for Justin Layne. But a couple of comparisons there you don't want to have when it comes to Justin Layne versus Artie Burns.
Right. And, I mean, look, once again, this is a guy that, you go back to last season, I know there's a lot of question about did he or didn't he get passed on the depth chart by Pierre, and
it looked like it to me.
It certainly looked that way, didn't it? And this obviously hasn't played a lot so far. He has done a few nice things, I think, on special teams, and but that's not enough when you're a third round draft pick and a cornerback, and especially when you look back at what all has transpired with the Steelers at the cornerback position so far this offseason as well too. So we'll see how this plays out in the next couple of days, and more specifically what happens in the 2021 draft. And once again, I don't think you're rearranging your board here, but I hope Justin Layne has not bought a house yet.
Yeah, just recognize he's off scholarship and he has to earn his roster spot. It is not guaranteed for 2021. So give you any updates on there in terms of team comments throughout the rest of the day. Dave, the Steelers aired another episode of what they call the standard, kind of their 2021 draft preview over on YouTube and the Steelers website last night, and they got to talk to offensive line coach Adrian Klemm and had some interesting comments there. Maybe not anything super surprising, but for the second time this offseason, Klemm has really emphasized and reiterated the need for the Steelers offensive line to be more physical, basically saying they were not a physical enough group last year. I think that much is obvious. He says, quote, "One thing we want to really focus on is just being physical, bringing a physical aspect to the game back, playing with passion, communicating, getting guys in the right spots, not doing too much, but doing enough to keep defenses off balance." So every offensive line coach will say they want and they need to be physical, but I think even more so, the emphasis for Pittsburgh this year, especially on who they draft, will be reflected in guys that are really physical and nasty and just kind of old school tough up front.
And you would kind of expect that, going back through all the comments from, and I would suppose that probably in the next, few days, maybe not today, probably early next week, some sort of pre-draft press conference with Kevin Colbert and maybe Mike Tomlin, but this is something that we've known all off season, that you got to get more physical up front there. And Art Rooney saying, look, you can't be last in when it comes to running game and all like that. So We obviously, so far, in a lot of the mocks that we've been doing, and a lot of the mocks that you'll see nationally, you see them addressing offensive line and even the running back position early there. So I don't think we'll be surprised if we see offensive line and running back addressed early in this draft. And Klemm's comments obviously not a huge surprise.
Yeah, obviously they're going to address offensive line, but it's clear when you hear about the interest in guys like Tevin Jenkins and Dickerson and Miners and others, they all have that common theme of really tough physical guys up front, and that offensive line just simply lacked that last year. So you can see what the building blocks Klemm and the organization wants, and they want to start with physicality and toughness, ability to win in short yardage, and just kind of dominate the line of scrimmage. Something this team did not do last year, really did not do in 2019 either. So those will be the foundations of this offense, and the guys they draft, whoever it is, will be guys that are among the more physical offensive linemen in this class.
I agree.
All right, Dave, did you get a chance to watch that standard? Anything else that kind of stuck out to you if you happened to watch it?
No, I haven't gotten through. I saw it. It's in my Twitter feed. I haven't gotten around to watching it yet.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a little bit more pro day information as well, although nothing super, notable there. But we found out a couple more pro day information at the last second.
Okay, and that was on your Twitter feed yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were at Iowa State, Baylor, and Chidi Iwoma was at San Jose State. So
where all have we seen Klemm show up so far?
Let me go ahead and pull up the tracker. I think he was at 4 or 5 spots this year. He was at Notre Dame, Northern Iowa. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Let me look here with the tracker. We saw him, I think, 3 or 4 schools this year. Give me 1 second here. I can pull up the list. Adrian Klemm was at Wisconsin Whitewater. I believe he was at Northwestern. I was never able to confirm that, but I believe he was there to watch Rashawn Slater. He was at North Dakota State for Radens. He was at Northern Iowa for Spencer Brown. He was at Ohio State for Davis and Myers. He was at Notre Dame for all those guys they have, and that's where we have him so far.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yeah. So, Klemm and Chris Morgan was at a couple other schools, including Oklahoma. I know Chris Morgan was at Oklahoma and I think Michigan as well. Speaking of offensive linemen, Dave, I know we discussed on the previous show about Tony Pauline's report of the Steelers showing interest in Landon Dickerson, even as early as number 24 overall. Again, going back to the theme of tough physical guys up front. But I think the very next day, Tony Pauline had a pretty brutally honest article on Dickerson and the state of his medical situation, saying the teams largely are not comfortable with his medical situation given the history of ACL tears and ankle surgeries and just the inability to finish out seasons. And so some teams really wouldn't consider him until even day 3 because of that, very lengthy red flag medical history.
Yeah, you don't know how much hyperbole is in there, right? And obviously we're not privy to the medicals, and really that's something. I mean, you go all the way back to when we first started talking about the this year's draft class, and I think Dickerson was one of the first profiles I think that we had up on the site by you, right? And the thing with him, look, we have to go on what we know, which isn't much, and then the rest of the speculation out there. Now, I will tell everybody the plan is right now for Dr. Mel, Dr. Melanie Friedlander, obviously longtime contributor, medical advisor really to Steelers Depot. I think she's planning on addressing Landon Dickerson and his injury history in her Sunday terrible take. So that should be. I hope she doesn't adhere to the 3-minute limit on that one. But 2 torn ACLs, I believe, in the same knee. I believe the right knee, if memory serves me, and a couple of ankle issues as well too. And I mean, the kid is a big kid on top of it. And I was going through some of the something came across my timeline from another quote-unquote medical expert talking about, how big of a guy he is, and because of the injuries the specific injuries he's had, because he's, this medical analyst said kind of knock knees, or has knock knees, whatever that means, and that maybe could be prime for arthritis later on down the road there. But I'm really interested to hear what Dr. Mel has to say about Landon Dickerson, because I mean, one thing we've talked about through this entire process, and we're not going to get answers to it by the time the draft rolls around, is the fact that how comfortable are teams such as the Steelers with his medicals. You would have to think that part of the medical recheck, he was part of that group in Indianapolis for the medical recheck. We obviously, I don't know how much you can read into a guy doing cartwheels at a pro day. I mean, it's obviously impressive. And look, I think even if you go further back to the national championship game, which was not too long after he suffered the injury, obviously in the SEC championship game, that guy was wanting to get on the field,
and he did,
he did for the final snap there. So and he supposedly is on track to be ready right at or right close to the start of the season there. So that that's obviously good news when it comes to him, but. What we don't know about his medicals makes him a very, very, and what's out there, from Tony Pauline and his report, makes it very, very hard to gauge, where his draft stock is and, what the Steelers feel about him.
And according to the report, and I had mentioned this on the show when we talked about it, so I feel like I've earned my medical degree, I think the concern is less about Dickerson in the short term and if he's going to be ready for 2021, but just the long-term concerns. Is he going to be the same player 7, 8, 10 years from now? And the quote here from Pauline is, the long-term effects of prior injuries are as much of a concern as the short-term possibility of suffering a major injury again. I've also learned that several teams gave Dickerson a medical grade of 3- off medicals, the equivalent of a C- in letter grade. So again, I think it's less of a question of will he be ready in the short term, because I think he will be based on the progress that he's showing. But just will this guy just break down 5 to 8 years from now because those knees and those ankles just been dealing with the injuries and the weight and just the grind of the NFL. I think that probably is the bigger concern than the short term implications.
And once again, too, what one team doctor might think might be a little bit different than what another one does. So, once again, this it's above my pay grade, man. I love the kid. I think the Steelers love the kid as well. It's just what's going to happen from there.
Yeah, I'm going to be above my pay grade with this comment as well. And obviously, doctors are going to look at things case by case and just judge the medical evaluation of the player that they're looking at. But I wonder if in Pittsburgh, the calculation is a little bit different, considering they had a center in Marquise Pouncey who battled injuries but came back from them and still had a really long, successful career. Pouncey had some very scary injuries and just terrible, injury luck along the way. So I wonder if they feel like, well, it worked for Pouncey, so we're more comfortable taking the chance with Dickerson. Maybe that's an incorrect way to think about it, but I just wonder if that thought is at least in maybe not the doctor's minds, but the minds of Tomlin and Colbert.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to answer that question, or
I mean, no one knows the answer. Yeah, I just wonder. I mean, Pouncey had the broken, was it fibula, tibula, one of the two, and then he had the staph infection and the 7 surgeries, something like that. And he came back and he played really well. He kind of was the same guy. So I wonder if their thought is Dickerson. Well, we'll roll that dice again for the reward of it.
It's obviously a huge leap of faith, or research and all like that on top of it. I mean, look, when it comes to any draft pick overall, there's a lot of guessing in it. When you add the medical into it, makes it even tougher, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is something that we won't know answers to, and teams can probably only take their best guess at in terms of the medical side of things and what his long-term career arc is going to look like. And some of this will just be luck. If you just, get lucky with avoiding an injury, then it changes the whole complexion. So, I mean, we're all kind of guessing at this point.
Right. I mean, look, he's got great film, right? I mean,
Yeah, if the injuries weren't a concern, he's a first-round guy, and he's probably the guy I'm saying to take a 24 if injuries weren't the thing with Landon Dickerson.
And we also had the report from Tony Pauline, a few days ago that Dickerson is along with Najee Harris and Tevin Jenkins are one of 3 players that the Steelers have zeroed in on, and So it's all going to come down to medicals. And here's the thing: if you don't draft him in the first round, how far does he fall?
Yeah, it's unpredictable. I mean, again, you always use the phrase, and you're right, it only takes one team. But, I don't know what the consensus overall will be on his medical situation. I think he'll be a second-round guy still, but the medicals, have changed the arc and the prediction of so many guys before, and he could be in that same camp, I suppose.
And about the other thing, when it comes to him overall is how much of those reports of guys like Paul, how much of that is kind of, like I said, hyperbole, where it's a little bit over the top. Maybe one team's trying to drive his stock down. Maybe it's the Steelers.
Right.
You just never know what goes on. And especially when it comes to medicals and some of these reports on guys. I mean, we see this every year with like one or two players, right? What wasn't Tua? Some of the reports kind of back and forth on Tua. What was it, a couple years ago, and or was that last year? Tua was last year. Yeah, time gets away from me, but look, we'll wait and see. I mean, obviously, look, you look at everything, his entire body of work of what he did in college, and both on the field, off the field, all like that. I mean, he's the perfect kind of guy that the Steelers look for.
He is the one, and this is the way that Pauline phrased it, and I've seen some readers on Depot phrase it as well, that kind of really twisted the knife for me was, I don't believe Dickerson has ever finished the season before healthy, or maybe just once in college. I know 4 times he's had the season end early, which is just some bad luck, sure, but it is hard to frame that into your first round guy. If
you like a guy, though, and you like him, right? So, I mean, do you, how much does the risk factor per round play into all that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no formula for it, but the higher you pick it, the more you have to weigh that risk. I mean, the later he falls, the less that risk is a concern, because it's just lowered because it's a later pick. But in the first round, that's the guy that your class is going to be remembered by. And if he doesn't work out because of injuries, then that's going to be obviously deeply disappointing, and they're going to change your plans and make you draft another lineman again.
Right.
So, interesting guy, very polarizing player, just in terms of we don't know exactly where he's going to go. I don't think he'll be the pick at 24, but if the Steelers are comfortable with the medicals and Harris is off the board, then, I think all bets are off.
It would make for quite the post-selection press conference, because there would be more questions about his medicals than there actually, than his play. I think. I admit I spent, I think the last, 48 hours and all, going back and looking at some of his tape and all, because I know they like him. All right. It's just how much do they like him, and
how much do they? Where is their opinion on the medical is like the ultimate question.
Right.
And we don't know the answer to that.
Right.
We won't know the answer to that. And even if they do draft him, they're just going to say that they were comfortable with the medical, and that's all they're really going to say.
Sure. And, we've written about him quite a few times on the site, and I've seen a few comments on those posts said, well, what happened, with Heath Miller several years ago? Well, Heath Miller was a little bit different because that was a sports hernia. All right. And that sports hernia that he had prevented him from doing things at the pro day and all like that. It's not like, at least from what I remember, I don't think Heath Miller had a huge, laundry list of injuries at Virginia there. And even way back when Heath Miller was drafted, it's not like, speculation about health and all like that. When it came to hernias, I wouldn't think was overly a troublesome decision to make. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. It was a one-off thing for Heath.
Right. So that obviously made that decision. And what do you remember about Pouncey? Oh, you just talking about during his career?
Yeah, during his career. I think it was fine coming out of Florida, but I mean, he had a broken ankle and the fibula and the staph infections and all that. So, but he came back from that. Now, what Cam Hayward, I think, also had, was it an elbow, a shoulder coming out of Ohio State? Am I remembering that correctly?
Brian Baldinger was on the radio this past week as well, too, and said, Anthony, and look, you can't go for one comparisons here because everybody's different, and it's just what was on Baldinger's mind. But he said something along the lines that Anthony Munoz, when he was in college, I think tore his knee up twice,
Right.
And never had a problem, I don't think, from the NFL, and rode that knee all the way to Canton. Right. So,
and Hines Ward was drafted without ACLs, not by Colbert, but they got to enjoy Hines Ward, who didn't have an ACL.
So look, that's why you have that's why you have the doctors on staff, right? But long story short, to kind of end this conversation here, I'm really looking forward to hearing what Dr. Melanie Friedlander has to say during the Sunday Terrible Take.
Yeah, I think she's definitely the smartest of the three to talk about those things, and so I'm really interested to get her opinion on things.
She's twice as smart as I am.
3 times as smart as I am, and she does better on those terrible takes than I do, and I'm just deeply jealous by that she just crushes it every single time.
Yeah, proud to have her.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, what else you want to talk about today? Kind of a short list of things that I really wanted to delve into and discuss today. I know the whole Depot crew is doing these mock drafts. I'm very interested to see if somebody doesn't put Najee Harris at 24 in their mock draft, or if that's going to be just, across the board, Harris at 24, which is a fine selection to make. I'm not arguing that point at all. I may even still go that way, but I'm just curious if somebody bucks the trend and puts somebody other than Harris.
Yeah, look, we've already talked several times about building a short list here. We would be surprised if it's a player that that Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert weren't at their pro day, so that automatically whittles the list down quite a bit. Of those players, you can throw out half of them from probably potentially being first round selections, and then you go into the need factor, and then you throw in the fact that they want to more than likely. I would think I don't know what's the probability of it being an offensive player, either offensive line or running back. 75%.
Yeah, I was thinking 70-80%. That's a good number to put to it.
All right, so if you toss out, if you go by that deductive reasoning and throw out the defensive players, you're down to about 4 or 5 players more than likely, right? And you'd have to think Najee Harris is on that list, Travis Etienne's on that list, maybe Landon Dickerson's going to be on that list. Who else?
Yeah, a name that someone mentioned yesterday that we talked about more early in the draft process, but haven't mentioned him late, was Alex Leatherwood from Alabama, who played tackle, played guard, played left tackle this past year for the Crimson Tide, and is a really physical, nasty run blocker too. And so if Harris is gone and they don't want to take Etienne, could Leatherwood be kind of the sleeper that we sort of forgot about?
I suppose it's possible. I don't think you can rule it out,
right.
Completely there.
Because if you're looking at offensive players that they were at pro days for, not named Najee Harris, you have Travis Etienne, Dickerson, and then Alex Leatherwood. And then after that, it's like Jalen Mayfield and Eichenberg and Wyatt Davis, guys that I'd be pretty surprised if they were the pick at 24.
Right. Look, and I know people continue wanting us to go and talk more about Tevin Jenkins. Look, we've talked a lot about Tevin so far during this process. The thing is, we cannot in our right mind, unless we knew somebody didn't, mock him to the Steelers because of the sheer fact that Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert, at least we were 98%, I think, sure that they weren't at that pro day.
Right, and I still do not know who was there, but I'm very confident it was not Mike Tomlin or Kevin Colbert.
We're not saying that. It's not. Not going to happen. There's no way whatsoever. It's not going to happen along those lines. But just from us doing this over the years and connecting the dots and trying to use our best deductive reasoning, there's no way in good faith. He's not going to be my selection. I've already ruled him out. A, he might be off the board. B, I'm just not convinced. Because of several factors that he will be the pick. Not saying that he can't be. Because look, we've gotten surprises before. But the fact of the matter is, you go all the way back to the 2009 draft. That was the last time, at least we think. I mean, we might not ever know for sure whether or not Colbert or Tomlin was at the Missouri Pro Day. We don't think they were, but that was the last time. That's quite a streak right there, when it comes to drafted players, first round draft picks.
Yeah, I want to interview Ziggy Hood just to ask him that question. I would ask him no other questions. But
right.
Just be like, hey, were they at their pro day? Do you know who was there? I probably doesn't even remember at this point. But the history there is strong, and the correlation and the causation there is strong because they want to see these guys in person. They love taking these guys out to dinner. Obviously, you couldn't do that this year because of COVID. But Kelvin Fisher in the standard interview, and I'll probably write about it later today or tomorrow, says that, man, Tomlin and Colbert, they love taking those guys out to dinner. They love getting to know them as a person. So it's less about going there to watch them work out and test because they already have a good idea what kind of athlete and player they have, but they just want to get to know the person, the family, the teammate, the character side of things. And that's kind of what signals the interest. And they really want to get to meet that person face to face before they say, you're our guy in the first round. So Jenkins, it's still possible. I'm not going to say there's no chance of it happening, but I think A, he's probably gone before 24, and B, the history just says that he's not going to be the guy.
Let's back up for a moment and take a look at this from a severe positional need aspect. Name the top 3 positions the way this 75-man roster sits right now. When looking at depth chart at all positions, and you cannot group offensive line into one position. You have to be specific here. Okay, what are the top 3 needs positionally for the Steelers based on the current 75-man roster?
Center, running back, and depending on how they view Sutton, either edge or slot corner.
Okay. All right.
Would you agree with?
I don't know. I think tight end has to be. I think tight end could give it a run for the money in there for the last one. The first two, you're not going to get any argument out of me out of the first two. But what exact order is that? The exact order? Center, running back, edge or corner?
I didn't state it with an order necessarily in mind. Center and running back would be 1 and 2. You can kind of put it in terms of just taking value out of it, but just from a need standpoint, you can kind of order it however you want to order it. They're 1A and 1B to me, and then the defensive area would be third.
Where would you put tight end in there?
I mean, it's up there for sure, but I just think it's easier to sign maybe a veteran blocking free agent type of guy than it is to sign some veteran, number 3 outside linebacker who's not going to really do a whole lot for you. I can get away with a number 2 tight end more than I can get away with a below average number 3 edge guy.
So you would rank the need for a number 3 edge outside linebacker higher than a number 2 tight end?
I would now that gets into the value of what's more important to my team. What's more important if I lost Ebron or lost Highsmith or God forbid TJ Watt. What's more critical just in terms of the construction of my team. And I can manage and work around the tight end because I have so many great receivers, more so than I could trying to work around losing one of my starting outside linebackers.
All right.
I mean, it'd still be a blow, but I can deal with it better.
Hey, here's the thing about running back. It's not great, but at least you've got some guys, right? And you've got some draft pick guys in there as well, too. So if you get into the whole fungible aspect of it, we're you know what I'm saying? I fully nobody should doubt the fact that this team's going to come out of this draft with a running back and probably after the first 3 rounds, right?
Right.
So I struggle with that last spot. Is it tight end? Is it outside linebacker? Is it slot corner? Especially on the not that Layne was going to get any run at slot corner, but it's just it's one less, on the entire depth chart. I mean, they basically. It'd be interesting to see what happened if the season started tomorrow. Who would line up where in nickel?
Right, that's the thing. Like if they're going to move something to the slot and sub, then that you still need depth there in the slot, but you have your starter. If you're going to keep Sutton out at right corner full time, then okay, you have a massive hole in the slot because there's nobody there. And so I don't know where their head is at in terms of. I think they're going to kick Sutton to the slot because they're going to let Pierre or Layne battle on the outside, but I don't know that to be a fact.
How deep do you consider this tight end class? as far as what the Steelers look for and like, and it's like four names, right?
Yeah, it's pretty shallow. I mean, there's some names we could talk about, the names we've discussed before, but in terms of like the depth of this class, it's generally never that deep because it's just a tough position to make the jump to. But I would not call this a deep tight end class.
And you could really say the same for the slot cornerback position too.
Yeah, I think slot corner loosely is better and deeper than tight end.
And then when it comes to edge, there's a lot of very serviceable, what you would call number 3, third string outside linebackers in the Steelers system with upside.
Yeah, it's not a very good edge class overall. The strength at the top is pretty poor, but the more I look into this class, the more I think there is some depth and some value there on day 2, day 3, early day 3 kind of guys. So I think there is some depth there and some options for Pittsburgh.
So what you're telling me then is the first round pick, then circling back, will be a center, a running back, or a cornerback.
Well, I never like to say things in absolutes because the draft always surprises you and you never know what the board's going to look like. But obviously, I think the intent is to build that foundation of being a more physical, tougher offense. And so it'll be reflected in that first round pick with probably an offensive lineman or a running back.
Alex, Fungible Dave has just entered the building here, and he would like to take over on this portion of the podcast here. No, in all seriousness here, look, Warren Sharp. Sharp. Somebody I think commented in the comments and called him Warren Sapp, but Warren Sharp is obviously big into analytics, been around for years. Good follow on Twitter. I think some of the stuff he goes over the top on personally, but he has written and talked about recently a lot of the same things that I have talked about, and that is the fungibility of the running back position. And more specifically, how its teams are essentially throwing away their first-round draft pick if they draft a running back.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all understand the principle of running backs being probably the least valuable position and least worthy, quote-unquote, of being drafted in the first round. And I'm always have been in the mindset of building teams inside out. So I guess if you made me choose, like, what's the most important thing for Pittsburgh right now, I would say center over running back. But I don't want to overcorrect either and say, well, you just can't take a running back because he's of no value or use to you, because there is certainly value and use to that, especially as you go later in the first round if other options along the offensive line aren't quite as attractive. When
you look at the entire history of based on things that he has written, all right, talking about and when you talk about the running back, the first round running backs dating back to, I forgot how far he went back, but how many of them saw second contracts? The ones that did see second contracts got those second contracts before their first contracts were up. When we just look at the overall production, injury history and all, I mean, it's a very losing proposition, man. I mean, it really. Look, I think the top of this class is fantastic. I love the top 3 running backs really in this class. Talking about Najee, talking about Travis Etienne, talking about Javonte Williams. They all bring they all 3 have some similar characteristics, and then a few you branch out from there, and a few of them can do things a lot different, a little bit different than the next guy as well too. Now, without a doubt, I think Najee is the most well-rounded of the 3. You would probably agree with that. He's also the oldest, right? And
yes.
And and I think somebody posed the question, what if you could be guaranteed that whatever back that you drafted in the first round this year was Barry Sanders, all right? Would that change his mind? And he said, yeah, I mean, we could maybe get into more of a conversation there, but he was, he's still kind of, nobody predicts that stuff, right? I mean,
Sure.
And especially when Barry Sanders played a little bit different NFL. Not saying that Barry Sanders way back then couldn't still be very productive in the NFL if he played today, but to me, man, it's not a good bet. It's just not a good bet. Now, look, if they end up drafting Najee Harris in the first round, I'll love him as if he's my own. I think it would be an interesting thing to study and move forward with, to see if a guy like him could buck that. And I get the whole thing of, and I've said it several times as well too throughout the process here, is the fact that, is it just good enough to say, okay, well, just after 4 years, we're going to toss him on the pile anyway?
Right. Like I said, I think if you take a running back at 24, you have to go in with the assumption that he's not going to make it past 5 years with your team, 4 years in the rookie deal and the fifth-year option, and then you put him on the pile and you start anew. It has to be the honest assessment for this team. And you can justify that and say, yeah, that's fine, that's worth it. We get 5 really good years out of this guy. That's fine. But you just have to be honest about that's probably the way it's going to go, even in a best case scenario.
I mean, he's going to be, he's going to be obviously on their board.
Sure.
So I just, where have all these people been? When it comes to the other side of it there.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things to think about. The Steelers and Mike Tomlin in particular love the feature back, and so I think he puts that priority on that guy that can do it all, not just as a runner. And Harris is an extremely versatile player as a receiver, as a blocker, as a runner. And I know Warren Sharp had got on the Steelers for doing all these mid-round picks at running back, but they haven't worked out. So if you're Pittsburgh and you're saying, well, we've been drafting mid-round guys, third, fourth round for 4 straight seasons now, haven't really been able to hit and find that guy. So let's do a different approach and take a running back early and really try to make that a big, heavy investment. I think that's probably one way they're looking at things. And then finally, I would say I think their calculation is get the feature running back at 24 because the depth at offensive line, both tackle and interior offensive line, is better than the depth at running back. If you don't get a guy in the first round, it's going to be hard to find that bona fide feature back out of the gate in rounds 2 and rounds 3, assuming that Harris, Etienne, and Javonte Williams are gone. It'll be easier to find that center. Centers typically fall in the draft more than other positions, or tackles in a deeper tackle class in the second and third round than it will be to find that running back in the second or third round. So I think people get a little too caught up in saying, well, you got to fix the offensive line, don't take a running back. Well, you can still take a running back at 24 and address offensive line in the second or third round, which I fully expect them to do, even if they end up with Harris or Etienne at number 24. So just a reminder about that.
Okay.
So again, would I do it that way? Probably not. I would take Creed Humphrey at 24. I mean, I don't see what the downside is to taking, the top center in this class. That's arguably your biggest position of need, the best player there. I don't see the downside to that at 24.
Okay.
But I don't know if they're actually going to do it. They did not have Tomlin Colbert at his pro day, so, probably doesn't put him in strong contention to be the pick at 24.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
fair enough.
Once again, it boils down to what's the smartest thing I think for the Steelers to do.
Who would you take at 24, personally? Just putting all the history and pro day visits and all that aside. Based on the realistic guys you can expect to be there, including Harris in that camp.
Do I have to pick a running back?
No, anyone. Just whole draft, offense, defense. Who would you pick if you were Kevin Colbert?
Well, I mean, can I have access to all the medicals?
Well, based on the information you have at hand, because I can't give you HIPAA violations prevent me from giving you Dickerson's medical information I have on file.
I'd be more apt to draft Dickerson, I think.
Okay. Now, what if his medicals were just too scary for you? Let's just assume that it's just ugly, and you say, well, Dickerson just can't be the guy at 24.
Oh, wow. I would seriously consider, and it might be a little bit early, I'd probably get called for having a reach here, but Asante Samuel Jr.
Ooh, I like it. And you'd play him in the slot, or would you move
wherever I need to play him?
Wherever, yeah. All right, I like that. I would take Humphrey at 24. I would take the best center at my biggest position of need. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he's just a plug-and-play 10-year center for Pittsburgh. That's just me.
Once again, it would not, it's hard to do that with them not being at that pro day.
Right, yeah. Just, again, me putting aside the history. If I was Kevin Colbert, I would take Reed Humphrey.
Okay.
But that's just me. But, again, I think we should talk about Alex Leatherwood a little bit more than we are, just because Harris may not be there. I know we've gotten all very comfortable with Harris is the guy, but there's no guarantee he's there at 24. He could go, Miami. He could go to the Jets. He could go to, theoretically, Buffalo. I don't think that's going to happen, but I guess it's still possible. I've seen him mock there once or twice. So I don't want to get too comfortable with the idea of Harris at 24, because he may not be an option at 24.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, and here's the thing. If they didn't go running back in the first round with either Najee or Travis Etienne, what are the odds that you get a guy like Javonte to fall? I mean, you can't count on it, I don't think, to you in the second round there. You're almost resigned, I think, to the fact, to be quite honest with you, of going a guy like Trey Sermon in probably round 3 or so.
And maybe even round 2, because you sit there and say, if Sermon's like the last of the big feature backs that you would consider, do you want to gamble on him being there at 87? You may have to take him at 55 or potentially trade back to ensure that you get him if you feel like he's like the last of the guys that you'd be comfortable taking. And
here's the thing that we got to keep going back to when it comes to the Steelers that I think we've learned over the years there. It doesn't matter what I think about where a prospect should go, what you think about, what anybody think. If they like a guy, they're going to take him when they think they need to take him to get him. So we've seen this over the years. Say what you will. I know some people say, some people said Terrell Evans, first, had a first round grade on him maybe and all like that. And, but they have never been afraid for the critics to come after him to say, oh, they certainly reached on that guy. They could have got him around later if they liked him that much,
Especially in a year like this where boards are going to be more all over the map than any year before, just because of the lack of information, lack of medical and stuff like that, where you're going to see a lot of things that feel unconventional and unpredictable, but that just teams' boards are going to be ranked all over the map. And so I think you have to kind of prepare yourself for a draft that's going to look pretty different than how we dream it up in our heads.
If you had to narrow it down to 3 people that you guarantee the pick will be one of 3 people, who would it be?
Yeah, guarantee is a tough word here in the draft. Harris. After Harris, it gets really tough in terms of who it's going to be. I mean, Harris is the one guy you kind of feel like, okay, there's a really good chance that he's going to be the guy. I don't even know what other 2 I would lump into that category, to be honest with you. What do you think?
I mean, I think you're to the point now where I think it's Harris, Etienne, or Dickerson.
Okay.
I really think they like Asante Samuel Jr., but I just wonder if he's first roundish. But once again, it doesn't matter if they like him. They'll I've seen people say he's first round. I've seen people say he's third round. Heck, I don't even think Gil Brandt had him in his top 100. Did he?
He bumped him up, I think, from not ranked to 66. I want to say.
Did he? I must have missed. I thought I looked back on that.
We discussed that, right? His first rankings, he didn't have.
Oh, that's right.
Pretty sure in his second one, he moved him in 66.
Let me see. Hold on here.
I'm
looking at. Am I looking at the first edition? I'm looking at the first edition. My bad.
Yeah, that's all right. But yeah, he still has him ranked 66, which is not first round. But that's also very Steelers like to take the guy that Gil Brandt has ranked 66 in the first round.
Well, look, we've what was Artie Burns, I think, on once again, not that Gil Brandt's list is the end all do all, but I certainly like using it as sort of a cheat sheet guide.
Yeah, we just had that discussion, right? Wasn't Burns 99? Yeah, Artie Burns was 99 on that list. And
where was that?
Edmonds at? Yeah. Where was it? 2018, top 100, 2018. I don't think there was as dramatic of a change, of a discrepancy between Edmonds and where the Steelers took him. But let me try to look here. Oh, I'm trying to see here. I don't know for sure. This is not laid out well on NFL.com, so I don't have a great answer for you right now.
What year was that?
2018, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll find that. Hold on a minute here.
Let's see, 87.
Okay.
Okay, so there was a big discrepancy there.
And who else? I know I know he had Watt a lot closer, but it was still a little bit of a, even on Gil Brandt's list, it was a little bit of a so-called reach, I guess. I mean, according to one man's list.
Trying to see. I don't know where Watt went there, but there was a discrepancy there. So anyway, I mean, we're getting into the weeds with this stuff. But yeah, the point is that the Steelers have their board, and they don't care what any media member says because it doesn't matter to what their board looks like.
And, I mean, I guess you could plausible, Pat Freiermuth, I mean, they like him. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that they like him. I mean, not only do I struggle with Freiermuth being a first-round selection, I struggle with him in the second round, to be quite honest with you. But if it were to happen, if Freiermuth is drafted, I could see it happening in the second or third round, and more than likely the second round, because the Steelers, once again, they like somebody. They don't care what anybody else thinks. That's where they would go. And I really think the same with. I think Asante Samuel could be either first or second round material for the Steelers, and I'm trying to think of anybody else that I'd go. Obviously Landon Dickerson, if he was on the board at 55, I think that obviously could be a potential selection there. Any of the top centers at that, if Creed was on the board at 55. I think he could potentially be. We've seen them not necessarily have to go to pro days or have a lot of known interest in a player in the second round.
Mm-hmm. Right. That history's right.
Juju's a prime example of that. Didn't even know they were that interested in him, and boom, there he is. I'm going to be surprised if we're not talking Power 5. Obviously. Senior Bowl All-Star, Senior Bowl player with the first two picks of selections by the Steelers in this draft, unless we're dealing with an underclassman here, and then that underclassman would have to really be off the chart, I think.
Do you know where? So in 2017, the Steelers took T.J. Watt 30th overall. Do you want to guess where Gil Brandt had him at in his rankings?
Man, I want to say somewhere in 60s or 70s.
You want to pick a number, or do you want to just take that range there? You want to risk it
66?
60.
Okay, 60. Okay.
60. Yeah. So he had him behind guys like Deshaun Hall, Dorian Johnson. Chris Wormley was ranked ahead of T.J. Watt in Brent's rankings. But listen, we're all going to make those mistakes. So
look, he misses. He definitely. The main thing about he does have a nice kind of track record overall, and I guess if we tracked all of us over time, I don't know how close we'd get to Gil. But here's what I compiled on him. I have this spreadsheet open here. I'm a
only man who's got the Gil Brandt. I'm so glad he replied to you.
I'm never watching that tweet ever again. I think he liked my little exercise there. He said as much, but. The average for Gil Brandt going back to 2013, this is how long I've tracked this, my OCD and all like that, but of Gil Brandt's final top, say 100, dating back to 2013, he averages getting 24.8 of his top 32 listed players actually drafted in the top 32 selections. That's 77.3%. It's not bad, right? I mean, a lot of it, I think you can say, well, that's a gimme, that's a gimme, that's a gimme, that's a gimme. And usually where he does miss is obviously in the final third of the first round. So maybe that's not that outstanding after all. Maybe you and I could probably rival that number. You get into the top 50, though, in the top 64, he's got an 80.3% success rate when it comes to identifying players that he thinks will be drafted in the top 50. an average of, he gets on average 40.1 of his top 50 actually get drafted in the top 50. When it comes to his top 64, he averages 51.5 of those. He's even got a stronger percentage. His best percentage is in that top 64, where it's 80.5%. So, on average, he will miss, what's that, like 12 or 13? And I bet the Steelers are responsible for bringing that average down, over the years, right? And then top 100. A pretty stellar number, I think, overall, because you know how the draft can really fan out. You get into get past round 2. There's 79.4% success rate in identifying top 100 players.
Yeah, it's hard to, again, look at those numbers in a vacuum and not. I think I would like to see a comparison to at least one other person just to be able to compare and contrast. But it sounds like a really strong number overall in terms of the accuracy of that.
The thing is, do we have top 100 lists?
Well, doesn't Daniel Jeremiah do that? No. Something equivalent.
Does he go back there? Dane Brugler probably does.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody, even if it's just a list of names, a draft guide or something.
Right. So, but it would be interesting to compare and contrast the two.
Yeah, but it seems like overall, Brant, has been doing this for so long and just has a good eye for these things overall. And of course, you're going to have misses, but that's true of any time you have a list of 150 players ranked. You're not going to nail that, perfectly in terms of like ranking the best players out.
Do you think, and maybe COVID helps out in overall when kind of deciphering some of this year, especially let's say when it comes to the top 64. Will both of the Steelers draft picks this year, first and second round, assuming they stay put, wind up being in Gil Brandt's top 64?
I don't know. History kind of says no,
right.
But I don't have anything to really go off of that.
Okay. All right.
What is you were saying? When your mock draft is going to come out? I'm scheduling, I think, mine for Monday. Do you know when people are going to get to read the Dave Bryan final version?
I don't know. Do I need to get mine out before yours?
No, you can do whatever you want. I know you said that you've kind of been working on your mock, just without any spoilers. Don't give anything away, but just what area are you having the most difficulty in mocking? Is there a certain position or a round, or just where you're struggling the most in terms of where do I go?
Slot corner.
In terms of like what slot corner to pick?
That and where.
Okay.
And edge, and really tackle too.
Right.
I think I've got my first two nailed down. I think I've got my first two picks nailed down. And it look, you know how this thing is. You get there and you mark it down, and you go read something, or then you go look at something else, and then scratch it through, and then you go read something else, and he doesn't qualify. Then you run back to your what the Steelers look for list, and then you go back and say, did he play in an All-Star game? There's a lot. It's almost like that meme of Charlie, kind of all the dots connected and
Sylvia.
Right, just trying to, and it's not perfect. It's not a perfect process whatsoever. I really hate doing it because it's a no-win proposition. Because I think the better exercise overall, and I don't know, maybe we'll try this. Maybe we'll get all the draft contributors to try this. Is to list 50 players. Period. I think really our annual draft class kind of goes by this similar type rule anyway, but name 50 players you think the Steelers will draft and see if you can get all 7 or 8 out of that list.
Right. We do that in a yearly draft contest, right? Right.
So something similar to that, but that's probably the better exercise because, if your first pick gets ruined, the thing can really go off the rails quick, especially if maybe, maybe your first pick was the second round pick. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a no-win. You just try to connect all the dots and go through most of the clues that you have and history of the team. And luckily for us, I think we have it better as fans and analysts when trying to do our mocks, because we do have such a long history of the same GM, the same head coach, that there's obvious trends in there. And then, over the years, like, you build your what the Steelers look for list, and then, you go by the all-star game stuff and just character, all those things have made it easier, I think, especially when it comes to building a list of 50 players. And I mean, but even so, I mean, I think I've gone a couple of years of only hitting just one player in my mock draft. So that's become my new standard. If I could hit one, woohoo,
Yeah.
If I hit two, I'm some sort of stinking genius. And if I hit three, like the first three, like I did way back in, what year was that? 12, 13?
Year.
Huh?
That Gilbert, that was what, 11?
Yeah.
12?
When you hit the first three, I mean, the odds of that ever happening again are slim to none,
Yeah. You got Highsmith last year, right? You got one last year.
Is that the one that I got? I don't even remember.
I didn't get any.
A lot of times my earlier mock drafts earlier in the season are a lot better than my finals.
But you're only going to do two this year. So
yeah, I'm only doing two this year.
Mock draft.
It's just so busy. You know how it is working on the site, and it's getting even busier now, and it's just so hard to get the film watching in time. It just, so many things makes it tough to get out 5 mock drafts in an off season.
Where I'm having trouble in my mock is just the second round in general. I don't know where that sweet spot is between, what player do I think has good value at a position of need based on my first round selection. I've gone in a million different directions about who that second round pick could be at 55.
I mean, I think it could be Freiermuth. I think it could be Asante Samuel Jr., Dickerson if he falls, Humphrey I think is a name on the list, and then I think a couple of the other Notre Dame boys might start maybe a tackle. I mean the possibilities really expand out. I see where you're coming from in that second round selection there, but if I were to put leaders in the clubhouse right now, it'd probably be one of those names that I just mentioned there.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. All right, Dave, anything else here to talk about, draft or otherwise today?
I think we would. We do have a new sponsor, at least for the rest of April, that we're going to talk about here. Bosley MD is the thinning hair authority and the leader in effective thinning hair solutions for both men and women, offering clinically proven hair regrowth treatments and effective everyday hair care essentials designed to help prevent hair loss and combat thinning. If you everybody, you've heard of Bosley MD before, right, Alex?
Mm-hmm. I think everyone has.
All right, and they were fortunate enough; they were nice enough to send some products, and I've been using them. They've got a huge line of treatments and hair care essentials and all like that I've started to use now as well too. Look, support Bosley MD. If you want to go look at do this, go to their website, Bosley BOSLEYMD.com, and look at the wide variety of hair solutions for both men and women that they have there for proven hair regrowth treatments and effective everyday hair care essentials. Go there, BosleyMD.com, and look. If they set up us up a discount code here for Terrible Podcast listeners. Use discount code HAIR50 to get 50% off all products right now. So that's a no-lose proposition right there when it comes to Bosley MD there. So if you need those kind of products, if you've been looking into those kind of products, now is the perfect time to take advantage of this deal. Once again, BosleyMD.com. Use discount code HAIR50 to get 50% off of all products. And we appreciate having, I know Ian has been a long time follower of ours, and when you come to find out, you start putting two and two together, man, this guy running this company and all like that is really quite outstanding. But he is a long-time listener of the podcast as well, too. So you would be helping him in the process, and we appreciate them reaching out to us. And you'll be hearing more from Bosley, MD, in the coming podcast.
Absolutely. So thank you, Ian, and thank you, Bosley. What's the code again for Table Podcast?
Hair 50. Hair 50.
Should be Hair 55 for Steelers.
Don't confuse the folks there. Hair 50.
Yeah. Hair 50. All right, Dave, actually, I do want to mention one more draft thing here, just because you mentioned it, the look for study, and I'm getting close to the end of wrapping this stuff up here. One guy on the edge list in terms of the outside linebackers who checked every single box, actually two of them were both Penn State guys, Jason Owe, and then one guy in your mock draft, Shaka Toney, and that's a guy probably worth mentioning again just because he seems to check a lot of the boxes the Steelers look for.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised to see him make that cut there. I mean, you look at just the measurables alone, you would think, and then you think he'd come close to it. But I mean, for him, the unfortunate thing is we don't have full, measurables on a lot of these guys, right?
I think we have him on. Wait, which guys? The current class or past players?
Well, both.
I think we have. I think we have a good.
Only two made the cut, though, right?
Right, only two made the cut in terms of checking every single box. It's usually the 3-cone that trips these guys up because the 3-cone is 7 seconds, and most guys just don't get under 7 seconds.
How important is that overall?
Well, the thing with the 3-cone is that the data set there is a little bit lighter because some guys don't run their 3-cone at the combine, especially. So, could that number change a little bit? You could probably make an argument for it. But the Steelers, when they drafted guys with known verifiable 3-cone times, they've always been like generally 7 seconds or under.
Okay.
But I thought Tony on that list because usually Owe's a freak. He's a crazy physical guy. So of course he's going to make it. But Tony, a little less so. But for him to make it, I thought was kind of interesting.
All right. Let's see here. Are we ready to get to some reader emails here? Did we miss anything? Scroll down the list while I pull up the...
Sure. I was thinking about our schedule for next week, too. I was thinking maybe we do a couple extra shows just to really go through kind of the draft position by position and kind of give this full recap and preview as possible, I should say, for this thing. What are you thinking? Yeah, we could do, definitely Monday and Wednesday, right? Right. I think we'll do Monday, Wednesday, and then Friday to talk about, day one of the draft. Right. And okay. Yeah, that go ahead and everybody set your calendars for that then. And we'll obviously be reviewing some final mock drafts throughout that project. Got a lot of great feedback from the draft roundtable show that we did the other day. It was just so many emails, so many tweets on that, and boy, just so proud of the Steelers Depot crew. I thought they did a great job on that. And once again, after the draft is over, we'll get these guys back on, especially the ones specifically that may have written up the reports on any draft picks that the Steelers had that they wrote about there. Yeah, absolutely. Really good feedback. It was a great time. And, we'll certainly have those guys back on again. We talked about the Mike Tomlin extension, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that broke before the last show. All right. Anything else that we miss? My terrible take today will be on the Mike Tomlin extension and what that means about his job security. Yeah, what mine yesterday was on Joshua Dobbs. What did you think about that? I liked it. I agree with everything you said about just having, it being an important signing and being able to compete with Haskins and maybe even still carrying Dobbs on the practice squad, hypothetically, if Haskins even wins that job as number 3, just to kind of keep pushing Haskins and give yourself some options. So, yeah, I fully endorse the Dobbs re-signing. And speaking of Dobbs, got the contract numbers back on him, and it was obviously a 1-year deal. It totals out at $1.04 million. He got a $50,000 signing bonus as part of that deal. His base salary is the minimum for his accrued years in 2021 at $990,000. It obviously is as predicted, a veteran benefit deal, which means he'll have a slightly lower
cap charge when it comes to that. And in fact, this cap charge will be just $900,000. The Steelers effectively used $120,000 in 2021 salary cap space by re-signing Dobbs after roster displacement took place there. Now, as part of this veteran benefit deal, the max they could have given him for a signing bonus would have been $137,500. So they obviously didn't go the full amount there. He got $50,000 more than Vince Williams got, though, when it came to a signing bonus. Do you still read much into that whatsoever?
Yeah, it's hard to read too much into it. I think they're just both going to be given the opportunity in camp, and we'll kind of go from there. But I'm reading the Justin Layne police report. That's not great for him.
No, some of the comments that he made, not great.
Yeah, but again, I don't think it's anything he's going to get cut today over, unless they really just want to wipe their hands.
Right, and boy, you want to talk about really, just once again, I don't think you reshuffle your draft board, but it would punctuate. You better come out of this draft with in the first 3 or 4 rounds with a cornerback, that's for sure. But I kind of view that maybe as probably already the plan anyway when it comes to that, though. Mm-hmm. But
right.
Let's see. Oh, what about the rookie minicamp news?
Yeah, well, we do know that there are going to be rookie minicamps, but as Tom Pelissero, I think, reported yesterday, teams will only allow up to 5 tryout players to be invited to rookie minicamp. And the Steelers typically invite, I think you said 18 in the 2019 rookie minicamp, and they've had success of those guys coming out of their, whether that's Tuzo Skipper, Doc Hodges, Terrence Garvin, I think maybe even Will Johnson, etc. So I'm glad there are tryout players, but still, a little disappointing.
Right, and you did say, and I wrote in a report yesterday, 18 from 2000. They had 18 tryout players, and I don't know, didn't they bring in maybe 1 or 2 after the start of? I can't remember if maybe 1 or 2 were added after the first day or whatnot, but even 18, that's a huge number. And I think you go back over the years, they're definitely bringing in a lot more than 5 in total. One of the biggest mysteries here right now, when we're ahead of a couple weeks ahead of minicamp starting, is are you going to be there to run the offense and all? Are you going to be the quarterback at rookie minicamp? Because as it looks like right now, none of the 4 quarterbacks under contract are eligible to participate in that. So
right.
Unless we miss something related to a rule change or something like that, I think you can go ahead and pencil in that this team's going to have at least one, undrafted free agent quarterback. We'll see what happens in the draft. I know a lot of people still speculating that they might draft one at some point. But at least one undrafted free agent quarterback, and probably one of the 5 invites would be a quarterback too, right?
Yeah, just to get yourself to function through rookie minicamp. Because one reason why they brought in so many tryout guys was just because they could and get more looks at guys, but also just to kind of have a full roster of 50-plus players to actually have a organized minicamp. If your rookie minicamp roster is going to be 25, 30 players, it's kind of a skeleton crew. So I don't know how they're going to play that. It's kind of going to be one little difficulty in terms of teams trying to set that up. I'm guessing Marcel Pastor, the assistant strength and conditioning coach, is going to be the quarterback. He's got an arm. I've seen him in camp before. Yeah, they'll probably bring somebody in.
Matt Canada might have to take a few snaps back there or whatnot. But definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out just from the quarterback position alone when it comes to rookie minicamp. But yeah, that was discouraging news. Not huge in the big grand scheme of things, but the Steelers do like to bring in a lot of tryout players, and we have seen a few stick around for a little bit when they do that. And then look, based on the fact now, we just said the Steelers have 75 players under contract. They have 8 draft picks. As the math stands right now, correct me if I'm wrong, that leaves potentially 7 undrafted free agents. Now, will 7 be the number? It will probably be more like 10 undrafted free agents, and then they cut maybe 3 guys on the roster currently under contract after that. But I will be surprised if the undrafted free agent list is more than 10 as we sit here right now.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit smaller than where it's usually at. And actually, just in general, this is a very small draft class because of the seniors that could go back to school, some underclassmen that didn't declare. I think it's like less than 700 draft eligible players this year. Usually that number's up over 1,000. So it's a very, very tiny draft class. So in one sense, the tryout limit kind of sucks, but there aren't going to be actually just that many guys available for tryout just because it's a small draft class overall.
And then with the undrafted free agents as well this year, the Steelers never spend money on signing bonuses hardly, and
turns me up.
Yeah, even though I think the pool for that league wide is 160,000 per team. That means the total of the signing bonuses that you give out to undrafted free agents, regardless if you sign 40 of them or 5 of them, is 160,000. What did we determine that the Steelers spent last year on their undrafted free agents in total signing bonuses?
66,000 and change. I made the joke in the conversation. The Steelers just have this old school mentality of, son, how would you like to become a Pittsburgh Steeler and be part of this proud tradition? We'll give you $3,000. And they take a $100,000 deal with the Patriots. Like they just go somewhere else.
And give you some cafeteria coupons, to go along with it. So, I mean, look, you see we've had this conversation before. We see teams like other teams around the league partially guarantee parts of the contracts just to get some of these guys to sign with them. That's not going to be the Steelers. That's not how they function. It will be, and when unless it's a really good situation for a kid, and that's where the agent comes in. The agent's got to look out for the for the well-being of putting money in his client's pocket, on top of what presents the best chance for a kid to maybe make a 53-man roster on top of it there. But when you're competing against having half of your 660,000 first-year salary fully guaranteed, whether you make the roster or not, that's hard to compete with when you're throwing out, here's 10,000 smackaroos, 10,000 big ones. Come on, sign on. It really decreases, the quality of your pool. Now, however, we have seen the Steelers land some nice undrafted free agents over the years, right? But, I understand why it's a sticking point with you, but I don't think it's going to change, and I specifically don't think it's going to change this year when you have the cap space that you're working with on top of it.
At least just maximize the pool that you're allotted, even if you don't want to do the guaranteed partial salary of your contract, fine, but at least just utilize the max that you can. I don't know what the reason is to not do that.
Yeah, I mean,
saving.
Well, here's the thing. Even if you spent the whole 160,000, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say all of those kids didn't make your roster, you had to cut them. Only a third of that's going to be dead money in 2021 because it's post. You would assume that all the cuts came after June the 1st, right? Although
some of these guys have been cut in rookie minicamp.
Yeah, we have seen that, but let's assume that all of them make it to June 1st, and then are cut after June 1st. Then a third of that 160,000 is what would be dead. I mean, that's not a lot of money.
So it's a third over the next 3 years you pay that out?
No, well, everything else accelerates into 2022 then. So the other 2/3 accelerates into 2022. But the initial third of that signing bonus that you give a kid comes due in dead money if he's cut after June the 1st when it comes to the signing bonus proration.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. Just their philosophy.
Alex, I had a math problem this week. Actually, it was a gift given to me on my birthday, of all things, on April 16th. There was an $80,000 credit given to the Steelers on the NFLPA salary cap page. And as you can imagine, I haven't slept well since. Well, up until yesterday, that is. A well-buried source has informed me that the $80,000 credit that the Steelers received was a credit for an old injury grievance that that had already been deducted from the team, that needed to be arbitrated and all like that, and that finally got taken care of there. So the Steelers got a gift of $80,000 back to their salary cap on, I believe it was the 16th, and I now balance.
Well, I'm very happy for you. It was a very beautiful balance sheet that you shared with us, and now the Steelers can say, "There's our $80,000. There's our undrafted free agent bonus pool money."
Right, and they won't even spend all of it. Don't spend all of it in one place, but we'll obviously see.
So where are they at in terms of effective cap space, usable cap space right now?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Alex. Let's see here if I can find the sheet I was on. Now, you would ask when I have the.
I know the number, but I just was letting you.
Right, hold on a minute here.
The accountant here, but thank you for doing that. No one does the Steelers cap better than one Dave Bryan.
Well, thank you. That's it's what I do. It's what I love to do. All right, here's where they sit currently. And also one thing that since probably last we talked about the cap, the $792,000 mandated workout bonus placeholder charge has hit the NFLPA as well too. So as of right now, and you're very blessed when you can get some real time matching with the NFLPA number. It really only happens, I think, this time of time in the offseason here. The Steelers are $10,351,586. 10,351,586 under the cap right now. Now, you might think to yourself, that's a lot of money. That's a lot to be under. But once again, when you go through the projected future salary cap expenses that this team has moving forward from this date forward, and that includes the draft class and all, they are, if you want to be realistic about it right now, Alex, this team is $2.4 million over the cap. Now, technically, they're not. Technically, they're 10.351 under. But when you look at the forthcoming expenses, and really kind of on the conservative side as well, to be quite honest with you here, if you look at that, this team is effectively 2.4 over the salary cap right now. And if you listen to this, you're saying, well, how the heck can that be? Well, it's just fact of the matter. You got the even though you got the rookies coming in here, the offset of that the $5.64 million of dollars kind of offsets that, so that brings that number down to a much more affordable. What is it, like 2.3 or something million dollars is really all you're going to effectively spend on your draft class as we sit here today. But you still got the 52nd and 53rd player you got to account for. You've got a practice squad that you have to account for. That's going to be probably between $2 million and $2.5 million. You have to account for $6 million or so. At lowest, it's going to be $6 million the Steelers go into the league with, or go into the year with, in available salary cap space to account for in season injury replacements, standard elevations from the practice squad, yada yada. So basically, and this once again, this is a conservative look at it. You're looking at the Steelers being $2.4 million over the cap. Now, still expecting a Stephon Tuitt restructure to happen. Still expecting a Chris Boswell restructure to happen. That will free you up right around almost 5.1, right around $5.1 million. So if you want to add that into the picture, the Steelers effectively have a usable salary cap space right now of $2.607 million. So, okay. I know that's out there and all, but and a lot of people will look at that 10.351 number that they're under right now and say, spend it. Well, It's already spent, folks. That and 2.4 million more of it. So undoubtedly, this team is going to have to restructure some contracts. We'll see what happens with what's going to happen with David DeCastro and his contract. Is there a possibility for an extension there? Maybe. They could obviously still go to Joe Hayden and do something like a voidable year or something or another there. We'll see what happens with T.J. Watt and the contract extension there. Even though if you do sign Watt to an extension, you're not going to save that much cap space. I think probably at best you keep his cap number left alone. unchanged as part of an extension there. So that's the long and short of it. So the Christmas shopping season is over with, I think, folks, unless you're talking about after the draft, a guy close to or near about the minimum. We talked about Jesse James. I mean, you're not going to see any more free agents signed for, that are going to highly impact the cap in 2021.
Well said. Thank you for taking us through that. And yeah, they never really did any Christmas shopping at all this year. They went down to the local Dollar General and rummaged through the clearance bin, and that was their Christmas shopping in free agency.
Right, and pretty much as we predicted would be the case anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the math of it all. Again, $2.6 million in effective space post restructures, based on even with just the few free agents that they signed and doing voidable year deals and all that. So there really was no room to bring in a marquee free agent.
Right.
But you still think theoretically that Villanueva could be re-signed with a voidable year extension, right?
I think it's plausible.
Mathematically,
yes. It's plausible. Now, will it happen?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, he did visit the Ravens yesterday. We should mention that. Reportedly, the Ravens don't plan on signing anybody until after the comp period ends, so they don't have to have any worry about losing on in the compensatory formula aspect.
Okay. I mean, we'll obviously see here. I'm a bit surprised that he still remains unsigned at this point. To be honest with you.
Me too, and I think Baltimore is not a great fit for him. I don't see him playing right tackle there, but I don't know what their plan is.
Right. So we'll obviously see how the rest of this plays out.
All right, Dave. We get to read your emails? I don't even know where we're at in the show anymore. Do we read your emails?
Yeah, we definitely do. And let's get to those.
All right, Dave. What do we got from the mailbag?
All right, let's start with one from our buddy Jelani Suleiman. Writes in about the Steelers offensive line. Love the Monday show, getting different perspective. All the draft walk the mock. Alex did as well too. My question is, and you can include specific names, whether it's a free agent or a draft pick. If you had to guess, who will be on the starting offensive line week 1 from left to right? Thanks as always for your hard work. Love the draft coverage as always. Left to right, I mean, I from where I sit right now, I would guess, there's all what side is Banner going to play on and what side is somebody else going to play on. I will guess that Banner will stay on the right side. That's just a guess, mind you, but I would go at least week 1, Chooks, Kevin Dotson, a drafted center, David DeCastro, and Zach Banner.
I would as well. Same thing.
Obviously, if you drafted tackle, you would want to probably get him on the field sooner rather than later, especially over at left tackle there. Who the center is, we'll see. And there's always probably going to be the conversation the rest of the offseason anyway, is Zach Banner going to play on the left or right side? So that would be my best stab at it. And obviously Alex agrees with me there. Pablo Martinez writes in, hello, Dave and Alex. I'm a big fan both of the podcast and the YouTube live stream. Oh, and can't forget the website. But like you, Dave, I'm a big fan of the tight end position. And living in Miami, all I ever hear about is Brevin Jordan. Well, I'm not a UM fan. I don't know much about him. I'd like to hear your guys' opinion on him as a tight end, as a potential Steeler draft pick. Thank you and keep up the good work. Just him being a little bit undersized is one of the biggest issues, I think, when it comes to him.
Yeah, he's got good tape. I think he's a good athlete. He's a fluid mover. He's a yak threat. I think the production was decent, but the size is pretty below average. He came in, I think, 6'2.5". I think the length is just average. He kind of has an H-back type mold to him, and he did not test well. I don't know why that is exactly, but his testing and his size might push him down a little bit. I think in Pittsburgh would not be a great fit as an inline type of guy, so not thinking he's going to be the pick.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of conversations out there. Is he tight end 2, tight end number 3? I don't see it as tight end number 2, to be honest with you. I don't know, tight end. I think it goes from Pitts to like tight end 4 this year. I don't think there is a tight end 2 or a tight end 3, right?
I mean, there has to be somebody, but I get your point. There is certainly a monster drop off from Pitts to whoever you want to put in that second spot.
Dustin Stover writes in, DeCastro trade possibility. If the Steelers want to trade DeCastro now or in draft night, what do you believe they will receive as draft compensation? Here's a scenario for y'all. If we're assuming Najee is to pick at 24, if available, and the Steelers really do love Quinn Miners and he is available at 55, I really can't see him making it all the way to number 87. So take Miners at 55, trade DeCastro for a second, third, and fourth. Second or third and fourth or fifth, or trade some picks to move up and secure Miners. We all know that gaining draft capital is crucial in addressing many other needs this team has. This would allow Dotson to take over at right guard where he has been most comfortable, allow Miners to stay at left guard, and center could be addressed with one of the picks gained from trading DeCastro. The offensive line would be set with a core four, Miners, Finney, or a draft pick at center, Dotson, and Banner hold down right tackle. I realize it's a lot of what ifs, but it's just something fun to think about and play out. I mean, the reason we don't really kind of get it much into those kind of hypotheticals there is the fact that I think it starts with this. Do you really think they're going to trade David DeCastro? And if they did, what do you think they would get in return? Well, DeCastro right now is entering the final year of his current contract, so a team trading for him would have to keep that in mind as well. They would have to be willing, I think, to trade for him and then turn around and give him a new contract right away. That would have to be in the plans for the team trading for him. Unless they were going to say, okay, we'll trade for him and then we can use the franchise tag on him next year. I just don't see him trading DeCastro, and I think that's where the email gets kind of truncated right there.
Yeah, I don't really see that happening. I mean, that all sounds, good enough, I suppose, on paper, but rarely do things work out that cleanly and easily, and you got a couple of rookie offensive linemen in key spots. I mean, I understand the idea behind it, but it's just something I don't really pay a lot of mind to be honest with you.
And I know there's a lot of people biting their lip about David DeCastro after coming off that season from last year, and I think there's an email floating in this group here that asks, about we speculated that was there something wrong with him, core muscle injury, whatnot. I don't think anything's ever surfaced on that whatsoever, at least not that we know of or has been made public. Does that mean that there wasn't an issue? Well, look, I mean, he did have issues during training camp last year, right?
And he missed time in the regular season. Like, the guy was legitimately hurt. It's not like he played all 16 games and we're just guessing or speculating. We know that he was injured early in the season.
Right. So, I mean, to what degree? And I think part of that I forget who sent it in. I don't have it in front of me. I asked if it's thinking, having confidence that DeCastro can bounce back. I mean, we hope. I mean, I think you got to look at it right now as it being a one-off last year.
Yeah, I think you see how he looks this year. I don't think there's any expectation that he gets traded.
All right, Paul Brown writes in, respectful disagreement round one. First time I can remember during this draft process, I want to respectfully disagree with you guys, seemingly discrediting Pat Freiermuth's chances of being the Steelers' first-round draft pick. I really think, given the lack of Steelers adjusting the position in free agency, the obvious interest in him by sending Coach T, Kevin Colbert, and tight end Alfredo Roberts to his pro day and a transition time it takes of tight ends to play a large role in the offense, I think it's more likely than you guys are giving credit. Gilbrandt's top 100 has Freiermuth listed as 38th overall. Didn't he move him down or no?
He did. He's in the 50s, like 51 or 54.
All right. Paul says it's 38th overall. If you were to go off that alone, and I'm not the most versed in scouting, he says, it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to take him at 24. Personally, I would rather take offensive line in round one, but I would be still happy with Freiermuth at 24. I guess this is more of a disagreement of us kind of throwing Pat Freiermuth out of the bathwater at 24. Paul, look, is it plausible that Freiermuth be the pick at 24? I think you'd have to say yes. But
sure.
But it kind of ends quick. It's a but.
Yeah. He checks the basic boxes that we look for, Power 5, Tomlin, Colbert at the pro day, theoretically some higher end value type of thing. But I just think And I considered that early on when the news first came out. We realized that they were really heavily looking at him at his pro day. We kind of looked at that idea. Could he be the guy at 24? And is it still possible? I suppose, but I just think he's a guy that's much more likely to be the guy at 55. So I think there are some guys that clearly they like, but they don't always value in that first round level. They can like them better on day 2, and I think Freiermuth is one of those guys.
Look, I've said all along, I think there's a good chance that Freiermuth is a Steeler by the time next weekend ends. But where? I don't think it's. I wouldn't. You got to be careful talking in absolutes just because talking in the past. You look at Gil Brandt's list and the Steelers not evidently didn't get copies of it. I got to be honest with you. I will be really shocked if Freiermuth's tape to me does not speak to me like he's a first round pick. Now, does that mean anything when it comes to the Steelers? No. But that's kind of why when we've been whittling down. And look, a lot of people will say Asante Samuel Jr. maybe doesn't qualify either, because of length and certain measurables and all like that in some of his tape. But the tape to me, plain and simple, the tape to me says Asante Samuel is more of a first round guy than Pat Freiermuth is.
I would agree.
And I even went back last night and watched a little bit more Freiermuth. He is a better blocker than my initial analysis of him. But once again, are we talking about a souped up Jesse James here? And if he didn't do a lot down the field catching the football. He's got good hands. He's good in the red zone. He's not that exciting after the catch, other than hitting people and trying to run them over, which he gets some yak points that way. But just top to bottom, when you look back at some of these tight ends and do comparables or where they went in the draft, no way whatsoever can I vouch for him being a first rounder. Maybe the Steelers will feel different. Now, second, third round, I think he's in play. I mean, they like him.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple.
55, if he was to pick at 55, would not shock me in the least.
All right, let's go to Grant Kinney here. Hello, Dave and Alex. I've been listening for over 5 years. First, want to say what an extensive. I think Grant Kinney's a first-time emailer here. Extensive and thorough job you guys do. It's much appreciated. Also wanted to say the 2-hour podcast about the draft prospects was something I enjoyed very much. I am with Dave and would listen to that for 4 hours. Be careful, Alex. Get some people rooting for that. Let's see here. My one and only thing I would change is when mentioning a prospect's names, just add their school and position. Yeah, we're bad about that sometimes. We make some assumptions. We got to get better at that. Just to get better idea who you're referring to. We all don't have all 200 plus prospects memorized. LOL. Even though this is my favorite time of year. Yeah, we're bad about that. We'll try to do better. He says, please continue to give amazing draft coverage. We will indeed do that. Quick question. You talk about running back, tight end, and center as positions of need, but I feel like there's a huge need at cornerback. We lost 2 starters this year, and do we really feel that we are okay with who we have? Because I do not. I want to hear a little more what you think about where we're at now, and this was obviously sent before the Justin Layne news broke this morning. If it is not one of the cornerbacks in the first round, then who could be drafted later to be a potential starter? Well, I think we've already talked about this quite, it's funny, we hit on a lot of the needs and ranking the positions of need earlier in the show here. I think Asante Samuel Jr. is on that list. I think, name them off of guys that fit and maybe just missed, Alex, that you could see the Steelers draft.
Is this early or late? I didn't get that part.
Let's assume he's talking within the first, 4 rounds.
Okay, I mean, in terms of early round guys, I thought Eric Stokes from Georgia, interesting name to keep an eye on. As you mentioned, Asante Samuel Jr.
We had a talk,
a little bit.
Direct message, okay. but in direct message not long ago, I was asking all the guys of those Georgia cornerbacks, is there one that could not only is there one that could potentially fall in the first round, but is there one that maybe could fall to 55?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've kicked around the idea of Eric Stokes for sure. I know Peter Schrager put him in his mock draft, and Schrager says, whatever it's worth, in his second mock draft, and this was his second, that he kind of takes insight from scouts and what he hears and adjusts for a second one. Did he do that for Pittsburgh's pick? I don't know, but interesting athletic guy, Power 5, Steelers at his pro day. Is that a guy in terms of the sleepers? You mentioned Samuel. Should we mention Eric Stokes as well? Probably at least mention his name.
Yeah, he does belong in the conversation for sure. I don't quite think so in round one.
Well, you would have said the same about Artie Burns, though.
Right, but he is one of those guys, though, that I think if you did go defense in the first round of this draft, is it more likely to be edge or a cornerback?
I would say corner.
All right, so if that's the case, I mean he would become a plausible guy, I suppose. But there would have to probably be a lot. The draft would have to break a certain way, I think. And then, maybe your top 3 or 4 guys off the board or whatnot. And if that's the case, I do think, though, that, and once again, you're dealing with a huge gap here where people think Asante Samuel Jr. goes. So if you're going to say that Asante Samuel at low end is a third-round cornerback, he still could be a first-rounder in the Steelers' eyes. And then whatever you think of Stokes, how far he might fall, I mean, it's plausible because of the pro day, the measurables, all of that. It becomes plausible. Do I think that's the way they're going to go? No, but if he fell in the second round, I could definitely see it.
And even at 24, I won't say there was a 0% chance of that.
Well, that's what plausible means, right?
Yeah. I'm adding on to that. And I know that he's viewed as a borderline late first round pick, probably more early second, but so is Terrell Edmonds, so is Artie Burns. So again, if the board breaks a certain way, Harris is gone, Tevin Jenkins is gone. They ultimately decide they don't want to take the risk at Dickerson at 24. Is that possible? Sure. So other cornerback names to throw out there, Aaron Robinson from Central Florida as a second round guy in the slot. That's a possibility. You can mention the other Georgia quarterback, Tyson Campbell, if you wanted to. And then maybe some versatile options like the Najee kid out of Florida State, who's more safety but kind of played in the slot, and Ardarius Washington, I think a guy that they could have liked quite a bit, maybe there in the third round.
All right, good stuff. Luke writes in, Najee - Alex ? Probably the only time you'll be mentioning it.
Combined, we have over 600 carries and 5,000 rushing yards.
Yeah, Alex, you have as many interceptions as Justin Layne, right?
Yeah, but right now fewer criminal arrests.
Okay, well, there you go. Alex doesn't seem to care that Najee is old because he's a running back, so you're not thinking 10 years, which I can see. But to me, it's more of thinking if he was 1 or 2 years younger, how you could view his upside as higher. An old running back makes me worry that he dominated at Bama against kids younger than him. Do you think about that at all? I don't want a running back at all, but trying to be fair about the evaluation. Luke, all right, take your talking to like a man, Alex.
I mean, it's a year. If he was 22, does the outlook change that much differently? And again, he wasn't really playing until his last 2 seasons. So it's not like he's older, but it's not like he's been playing every single year and is a 4-year starter. And he's got, I think, fewer carries than ETN does, who's a year younger than him. So, what do you care about more? So I think that stuff just gets made too much out of the age for the running back position. He was 22. We'd still be talking about him as the same back with probably the same career arc of being a one-and-done kind of guy. I don't think that's going to change too much because of 1 year.
I know at this point you don't maybe earlier in your blogging career, but not now. I don't think you have one guy right now that you're thinking, boy, I hope this is the guy at 24, right? I mean, you don't think like that right now, right? Or do you?
Yeah, no, I really don't. I mean, I think Harris is the favorite. Putting aside my own feelings, if it's not Harris, though, I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know who the favorite becomes if Harris is not available.
Let me ask you this: try to remove some of the bias aspects here, which is very hard to do. Are you hoping that Najee Harris is the pick?
I'm not particularly hoping that he's the pick. I think he's a good player, and I'll be happy to have him. I think there are so many needs on this team right now, and so many ways you can get better, and so many ways you can skin this cat of being a more physical, tougher offense, whether that's center or tackle or running backs that any of those guys accomplish that. So as long as you're doing that, then I'll be relatively happy.
Can I go on record and say that I hope Najee isn't the pick? I mean,
yeah.
you knew that already, though, right?
I think you've made that feeling very clear. Sure.
Now, I will get criticized from here to Sunday if he is, but I mean, I don't see why. What I think the Steelers might do versus what I might want them to do have to be separated, right? I mean,
sure.
I mean, there's no way you can do it otherwise and do it fairly. I have to look at this thing at what I think the Steelers might do versus the analyst side of saying what I think they should do, right? And people, I have made my points clear over the years of how I feel about running backs in the first round. I don't like it at all. And maybe if the offensive line was better, but it's not.
But they can also upgrade the offensive line.
Sure they can,
and they can do that easier than they can find starting running back.
But I also think we're the value and we're the first. I think long term too. And I think the money, the pick, the value best spent is not spending the first round pick on the running back that I think has a better than average chance of not even seeing the final year of his rookie contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I get that. I totally get that. But I think for the reasons I laid out earlier in terms of the value of the deeper class for the offensive line is going to compel them to look at running back early. And plus running back, it's not like it doesn't need to be addressed. Of course, it needs to be addressed.
Don't miss.
Yeah.
Don't.
Well, that's true of any pick. But
sure, but right. Don't miss. Mark from NoCal writes in, here's what Dave T. Oh, we're missing Dave T. So a lot of people been asking about, a lot of people just don't know. I think still maybe some people just tune into the podcast during draft season or whatnot. But Dave T. unfortunately passed away this past October, and I got one email the other day saying, why haven't you had Dave T. on yet? And, but we miss him. We never won't miss him, right, Alex?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But Mark went back and says, here's what Dave T said about Cyrus Tuatelli from Fresno State in an email to him, and he has been not able to locate a profile on Steelers Depot of him yet. We don't have anything on. What's up with Tuatelli?
I don't think we have a profile on him now.
And he's definitely drafted. He didn't go back. I mean, is he right?
I'm not even really familiar with the name, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not either, other than reading it in the email here. He says, I love this kid. This is from the email. I love this kid. Think he will be way better than Nutai. He plays on his feet, loose hips, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, yeah, we'll have to, because I had him as number 48 on his 2021 draft chart. Why don't we have more talk about him, Alex?
I think somebody did message me the other day about him. I know he is draft eligible. He did declare for the draft. I don't know where exactly he's ranked. He's got to be a later round guy.
He declared in early January. Yeah, I haven't seen his name in circulation.
Yeah, I think he didn't test well. Yeah, he did not test well at all. But okay. I think he's considered an undrafted type prospect. Number 28 guard, according to NFL Draft Scout.
Ooh, that's not great.
Yeah, so that's the reason why we haven't profiled him.
All right, one final one from Jeff Berg. Wow, what a phenomenal draft podcast y'all put on. First off, thanks for that, Jeff. I would have loved it if it was 4 hours and you broke it up into 2 podcasts. Hearing about all these players and also hearing the different people's takes was awesome. Great work at building the team, Dave, and kudos to Alex on his moderator work. I was envisioning other possibilities out of this. Could have a podcast where each guy gives their final mock with their explanation for who they picked. Anyway, great work. We need to get cloned first here. Second point, with the players talking about whether or not they'll go to OTAs is a bit confusing to me. Vaccines are available to all. Wouldn't it be advisable that all players and staff get vaccinated, and then there's no fear of contracting the virus and having really damaging effects? What do y'all think? I think I know enough to stay away from that topic altogether.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to do so. Obviously,
People are going to have different beliefs about the vaccine and the whole, COVID talk and science. And look, I'm not a medical professional at all when it comes to this. So, if the vaccine's available, I think the players should choose to get it. Obviously, if given the opportunity, I would understand why maybe some don't. So, I mean, that's a whole different kind of can of worms, Jeff, that I really don't want to get into. I mean, it's tough enough trying to talk about, the players and the offseason and the OTAs and not wanting to go to the OTAs and all like that, to take it another level and say who should and shouldn't get the vaccine. I mean, that's not my call. I mean, Alex, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said there. I mean, I think it's a good idea to get the vaccine. I got my first shot earlier this week. I'm not going to shame anybody for choosing not to or having hesitancy. I don't think that's an effective way to convince people to do it. I think it can. I would not mandate it for players to do so in the league. Obviously, it does not seem to be going in that direction. But yeah, I think for the player standpoint, for at least OTAs and stuff like that, not everyone is vaccinated yet. And then just, getting to a point where you have the majority of the population vaccinated to where you feel like you're on the other side of this pandemic is probably still the concern from the players right now. And that's understandable. But also, again, while the vaccine really helps you from not getting severe symptoms of COVID, it's still possible that you could transmit COVID to somebody who may not have been vaccinated yet or chosen not to. So there's some concern there about still how much you can, transmit COVID to somebody else, even if you are fully vaccinated.
All right, so we'll see how the league handles. We'll obviously report on this and talk about it. League related and whether or not mandates or what anything related to that. But probably just better just to leave it as is where you just left it.
Yeah. By the way, some Steelers news: Franco Harris will announce a Steelers draft pick on day 2 of the draft.
All right, fantastic. And I think they're doing something to have some special guests at various points throughout the draft. I think the Steelers have some charitable organization in like the 5th or 6th round, I think. Or no, it won't be 5th. It would be either 4th or 6th, I think, unless something were to change. Going to have, and I read that yesterday in a release from, I don't have it in front of me here, but obviously special announcements throughout the draft for all teams.
Right, and I think 13 players are attending the draft, and apparently Goodell hugs are allowed. Roger Goodell hugs will be allowed at the draft.
Okay.
Very important information.
Well, there you go. All right. Anything else? We wrap up all the breaking news in for the afternoon, or at least until we get done, and so it can break 5 minutes after.
Yeah, as far as we know, but we will be back on Monday, so we'll kind of, I think, Monday go through mock drafts. My mock draft will be posted by then, and then kind of just preview position by position drafts, prospects, what could the team take somebody, and just kind of really hammer home the final points on the draft before round 1 on Thursday.
All right, and your terrible take today?
It's on Mike Tomlin and why I think he's the college professor who has tenure, and I'll explain that in today's terrible take. All
right, and then we will be back at it on Monday, correct?
Yes.
All right.
And we'll also the live stream on Monday as well.
Oh, we're going to be busy, aren't we? All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you like to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Make a secure donation that way. Also, if you would like to have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. Go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site as well, too. Busy next couple weeks for the site and for the podcast and all. Probably going to go back to probably 3 a week now, right? For the next couple weeks, right, Alex?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably.
All right. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.